Hey everyone, I got another AWS project for you. With this one, we are going to build our very own email marketing campaign system that you could use to send emails from, like a weekly newsletter with some fun challenges or any type of email that you would like on regular basis to your subscribers. Now, obviously, there are lots of actual email marketing systems out there that you could probably use, but it's totally possible to build such a system in AWS. And it's a great way to get some hands on experience with multiple services. And that's really the point of this video. Now, let's talk about AWS services that we are going to use. So, the first one is Simple Email Service or SES. We will actually use this to send emails. We will use AWS Lambda for some email sending logic and personalizing the emails. We will use S3 to store the email templates and list of contacts to whom we need to send emails to. We will use EventBridge to set up a schedule and trigger Lambda function with that. And then, as always, we will need to do some identity and access management or IAM. We will need to do some work here to make sure that our services have access to do things in various other services. Now, let's talk about how much it will cost to you. Everything that we will do here is eligible for free tier except for the EventBridge scheduler functionality. So if you are inside free tier, most of what like we are going to do is free. But even outside of that, the charges will be like very minimal, maybe like 3 to 8 cents or less than that. Actually, I just want to tell you that EventBridge scheduler cost $1 per million schedule invocation per month. So we are only going to invoke it for like once or twice for our testing. So practically like 0 cents there. So from a cost perspective, this will either be free or 5 to 10 cents. That's it. And even so, I will walk you through how to delete everything in the end of the video. So stick around for that. Now, what you need to do to follow this project. Now, if you really want to follow along with me, I am actually going to be using a tool called eraser.io. This is going to make it really easy to diagram things as we are building, and we will also keep track of checklist as we go. So link of this tool is in the description if you're really interested to explore it. I'm sure you will definitely like it. So let's move on to eraser.io and then we will take it from there. Okay, so this is the eraser.io tool that I was talking about. Here you can click on new file and create a new project, and we can call this project as mail project. And let me type here like what we need, to follow along to complete this project, and I'll just paste here. So here are the things that we will need to complete this project. We need email address or addresses to send emails to, and because this is our test project, we are testing it, we need basically our own email address so that we can validate that, because once we will add that email address in AWS, it will send an email to verify that email and that it belongs to you. So that's why you need to have your own personal email address. Like practically this will be your subscribers who will subscribe to your newsletter, and once they will subscribe, they need to verify their email address, and that's how they will be added to your contact list. But because we are doing a test here, we need to have our own email address, personal email address. So we will need that. Second thing is we will need an email address to send email from. Here also you can use your personal email address for testing only, but in case if you want to productionize this application, you need to provide email address belongs to your own domain. For example, like if Cloud with Harry is my domain, then any email address belongs to that particular domain. For example, like no reply @ cloudwithharry.com, something like that. So we will need that. You will also need some basic knowledge of AWS. Now, because you are watching this video, so I'm assuming that you have some basic understanding of AWS, how to work in AWS. You should have AWS Management Console, a free tier account in AWS. So that's something that is required to complete this project. In case if you don't know anything about it, you can just follow along and do along with me. And the last thing that you need is a text editor or something where you can write code. So I would recommend to you to have a VS Code or something like that, so that you can look the code, modify the code, because editor will provide you syntax highlighting and all that, and it will be easy for you to update your code in the editor. So these are the things that you would need to complete this project. So make sure that you have all the things, and then we can move to the next steps. Now let's talk about what we are building overall, some high level requirements. So the first thing that we need is a place to store email template and a list of contacts that we want to send emails to. And for this, we are going to be using simple storage service or S3. I'm going to diagram what we are doing as we go along. So let me start with diagram as a code here and the cloud architecture. This is going to give us way more than what we need. But if you want to play with this on your own, it's a nice starting point with some of the different components. I'm actually get rid of everything except the S3 bucket. So let me remove everything from here. So over here, you can see like in the diagram updated after I removed the code, which is pretty cool. Like this is a diagram as a code, so you can add code and then it will update the diagram. Now after removing everything, we just have S3 bucket, which is what we wanted. Let me toggle the both button here so that we can see our checklist as well as our diagram. So the first thing that we need to do is to basically create a place where we can store our template in a contact list, and this is the place where we are going to do that, the S3 bucket. Now let's navigate to AWS console and create S3 bucket. So here I'm in the AWS console. Now here you can search for S3 in the search bar and navigate to S3, and you can click on create bucket, and here is the place where we can give the bucket name. So I will give like CWH email marketing bucket as my bucket name. We don't have to change anything here, just keep everything default. Block public access should be enabled. You don't have to remove that. Keep everything default and just click on create bucket. So now we have our email marketing bucket available on AWS. Now inside here, we want to store an email template, which is an HTML template that we will actually send to people. And then we need a list of contact as well. So for email template, this is the one, like I created a GitHub project, and here you can find the email template. Let me go inside this email template. So this is my email template which I created for this project. I just used ChatGPT to dump out this template for me. You can create your own version if you want to, or if you want, you can just use the same one. You can download this email template from the GitHub. I have added the link to this GitHub project in the video description. So this is the file which we will upload to S3 now. And the other file is contact.csv, where we have added the contact information. I have added like 2 contact information here. This email address is, the fake. It's not the real one, but you would need to replace the email address with the real one and just use that and then upload it to the S3. So let me go to S3 again, and I can click on upload and then add files. And then I'll just add email template and contact.csv to S3 bucket and click upload. So now we have our email template and contact information for our subscribers or people to whom we need to send email available on the S3 bucket. And just FYI, like the names here, the contact.csv and email template.html, make sure that you don't change the name here, because these are the names that we are going to use in our AWS Lambda function. So because these names are hard coded in the function, so if you upload a file with a different name, then you can face some problem. So make sure that you keep the names same here and upload the file to S3 bucket. So now we have the files ready here. Okay, so our first requirement of creating a bucket and uploading the items is done. Now the second thing we want to do is to find a way to send emails. And for that, we are going to use simple email service or SES. Now there is some setup work required here. Let me just add it to our diagram and from here, so that we can keep track of things. So what I will do, I'll just open editor from here, and here under define groups and nodes, I can say SES and square brackets and then SES, and then it will add the SES. We will define the connection later on, but yeah, at this time we just need to define the service. And now let's go back to AWS console, and then there we will try to set up the SES. Now back to AWS console, I'll open up a new tab here and just find SES and click on this and open this in the new tab. So here is the SES. Now I did some setup work previously and it got me set up with the Sandbox here. You can see that it is currently showing up me this, and it is running in a sandbox. So, but if it is your first time you're using this service, you're probably going to get a slightly different experience. I did grab some screenshots of my previous setup, so let me just walk you through those first. Now, if it is your first time you are using simple email service, you will get a button here to get started. So click on that. Then you need to enter the email address that emails will come from. You do have to validate this. So AWS will send you an email. There's a link in that email that you need to click on to make sure that it's a valid email address. Then you can click on next. That will take you to the next page to add your sending domain. Now this can't be something like gmail.com. This has to be your domain. I'm using cloudwithharry.com here. If you need to purchase a domain, you can use Cloud 53 or any other provider like GoDaddy and so on. A little bit outside of the scope of what we are doing here. If you don't want to go through all of that, obviously you can just watch the video, but you won't be able to send and receive emails. At this point, Amazon's going to send an email to that email address. You need to check it and click on the link to verify that you actually own that email address. Once you do that, you should be able to send emails from that email address. So hopefully this has provided you some idea of setting up SES when you use the service very first time. Now let's go back to live SES dashboard and we will try to do the same thing again. So this is the SES default dashboard for me. I have used SES in past and the Sandbox is currently running for me, and I don't have that old experience or the initial experience that I just showed you. So here you can see that we have again like the verify email address where we can create the identity, and then verify sending domain where we can again create the identity, and this is for our domain email address where we will need to add the DNS record to verify this particular identity. So one more thing that I want to show you here is that it is showing here that request production access. Now for our exercise for this project, we are not going to productionize this application, so we really don't need a production access. So it's saying that send emails at production level and leverage the full capacity of SES. Yeah, I mean that's really important if you are looking to productionize this application, but for our exercise, for our project, it is not something which we are looking for. So this verify sending domain is very important. Like once you will do this, then only you can go and request for production access. If you will not verify this sending domain, then this will not be enabled for you. So right now you can see that this button to request production access is currently disabled because I have not verified my sending domain. So for this exercise, like you really don't have to create an identity for this domain. We can just verify email addresses. So what we will do here is we will verify one email address for our from address and one for to address. So let's suppose like there is a subscriber who is subscribing to our newsletter and he already verified his email to get the newsletter from us. So that email address we will add, and then one email address for as a from address. That's it. So let's try to create an identity here for email addresses. You can click on create identity, and then here you can choose whether you are creating an identity for the domain or the email address. So click on email address and just type the email address that you want to add here, which is something your personal email address that you can verify, because Amazon will again send you an email with a link that you have to click. So I will type my email address. That's my email address, and then nothing else you have to do here. Just click on create identity. Now currently it is showing the status as verification pending, because that they have sent me an email and I just have to go to my mailbox and click that link to verify it. Okay, so here is the email which I got from AWS to validate or verify the request. So this is the link. I can click on this and it says that congratulations, you have successfully verified an email address. Now let's go back to SES console again and let me refresh this. And now you can see that the identity status is now changed to verified. So now go back to configuration identities, and I can see that I have one email address currently verified and which I can use for getting emails or sending emails. Okay, so now let's try to create another identity here, and this time I will give some other address. Like suppose this is the address of our subscriber, and I will just type something like some email address. I have blurred this so that I don't want to share my personal details with anyone, but you can type your personal email address or any email address that you would like to use for to email address, or the address where you want to receive that email. So just type that here and again click on create identity. You should get that email. Again, it is showing verification pending, so I will go to my email mailbox. Similar to this, I will get email, and then I will click on this link to verify that email. Okay, so I have successfully clicked on that link and it should be showing as verified now. All right, so now we have our identities created, like couple of identities created, email addresses which are now verified, and now we can use these email addresses for sending and receiving emails. So let's go back to our project again, and here we can click on this, that okay, we have a way to send emails. The SES is currently set up for us, and we will now use this service for sending and receiving emails. Okay, so till now we have a way to send emails, and the next thing is we need to find out a way to merge email templates with contacts and send them to email service. Now for this logic, like it's basically something where we need to programmatically merge email template with contacts, and then we need to send that to generate email, and where we will use SES for generating the email. So for this particular requirement, we will use AWS Lambda, and in AWS Lambda, we will write code to handle this requirement. So first of all, let's go to our diagram editor, and here let's add Lambda, and again square bracket icon AWS Lambda. So now we have AWS Lambda here. We will take care of connections later, but now we need to basically create AWS Lambda function and then write our code to basically merge email templates with contacts, and then trigger an email or send something to the SES so that SES can generate email for us. Now let's go to AWS console, and there we will create AWS Lambda function. Now before we go there, I would like to show you the HTML template and the Lambda code that we are going to copy there. We will just go through the template and the code to understand like how the merge will happen, what exactly we are going to do in the Python code that we will run in AWS Lambda. So let's review that, and then we will go to AWS console and create function there, and then we will paste our function code, and then we'll try to test that function to make sure that it is running fine without any problem. So let's go and review our template and AWS Lambda function code. Okay, so this is our email template. It's an email template.html file which is available in the GitHub. So here you can see like it's a normal HTML file, but here in body, you can see that we are using few placeholders like first name, and this is what we want to customize or personalize based on the person to whom we are sending email. And this value will come from the contact.csv file where we have the person's name and the email. Now let's go to the Lambda code to review like how it is happening. So this is a Python code that we will run in AWS Lambda. We are using Boto3 library, which is a library to connect to AWS services. Here you can see that we are initializing the Boto3 client for S3 and SES because we need to access S3 to read the email template and the contact.csv file. And then we are also talking with SES where we are telling SES to generate an email for us. And then here in the Lambda handler, we are using the bucket. So this is the S3 bucket name. So in case you are running this code, you need to replace this name with your bucket name. And then we are trying to retrieve the CSV file containing the contacts from S3. Here we are doing that. And initially I mentioned that do not replace or change the name of the CSV file because it's hard coded here. Usually like this is for testing only, but in case if you want, you can pass this value from when you read it from the S3, you can get the file name also. You can replace this hard coded value, and that way also you can do it. But for simplicity, I am just hard coding the file name here. And then here we are reading the email template file from S3. Later we are basically looping contacts and sending email to every contact in our contact file. And this is where the personalization of the email is happening. We are replacing the first name in the email template with the first name of the contact. And then later we are sending the source, destination, and the message data to SES so that it can send email to our contacts. So this is a simple Lambda code for generating email from SES and reading data from S3. So this is what we are going to upload in Lambda function, and then we'll try to first upload this code and try to test it there so that we know that it's working fine, and after that we will integrate it with SES. So let's go to AWS console now, and then we can create AWS Lambda function, and then we can copy paste this code there and we'll do some testing. Okay, so I am in AWS console and go to AWS Lambda. I can see AWS Lambda here in the recently visited services. If you are not able to see that, you can always go and type AWS Lambda in the search bar and then click on Lambda to navigate to AWS Lambda. So this is currently showing the list of functions. Here you can click on create function and click on author from scratch because this is a function that we are writing, and just give it a name or related to the functionality that we are implementing. So just name it anything. I'm naming it as send email function, and then after that you can choose the runtime. So runtime should be Python because the code which I showed you is written in Python, so we are going to use runtime as Python. And then for permissions, you can skip this right now. We will basically go to IAM and create a Lambda execution role and add permission policies later. So at this time we don't have to worry about this. Just click on create function. So the function should be ready in few seconds. All right, so our function is ready. You can see that it's showing here the Lambda function, and this is the sample code which is along with the function. This is basically Lambda handler, and it is doing nothing, just returning status 200. That's it. So we can remove this. You can just remove this code from here and paste the function code that I showed you. So you should have that AWS Lambda function in your local. If it is you don't have that, you can always copy from GitHub as well. So just go there and copy that code, and then we can paste it here. Okay, so I have pasted the code which I showed you here from GitHub. This is again the same code which we just reviewed. We are using Boto 3 and then S3 and SES clients, and then we are just retrieving the data from S3 and then sending emails to our contacts. So this code is ready. I have already replaced the bucket name here. So this is the bucket name which I created. We can always go and review to make sure that we are using the same bucket name. So I'll go and open this in new tab and CWH email marketing bucket. So that's the bucket name which I'm using, and I have contact.csv and email template.html in this bucket. So this looks good, and contacts.csv, the name is also matching with the file name, and email template.html is also matching with the file name. This code looks good. We can deploy this and let's test this function. So to test this function, you can click on this test and click on configure test results, and you can just name it as test1. So we don't need to use the payload which is available here. You can remove that, and you can go to GitHub, and I have provided like the sample payload that you can send. So we can just copy this, and you can just paste this and click save here. You can name it as test1 and then save it. All right, so our test is ready. We can click on test and see what's happening. Okay, so you can see that the test event name is test1. Function log is saying that an error occurred, and because there's an access denied when calling GetObject operation. And now this is happening because we have not provided our Lambda function permission to read the file from the S3 bucket. So the next step that we will do now is to add permission to our Lambda function. And for that, you can go to configuration, and inside configuration, there's a tab called permission. And here you can see that there's a role name added to this function. So click this role name, and here you can see that this Lambda has a basic execution role, and this execution role says that it can just basically create log streams and put log events. That's it. So there is no access to this Lambda right now to read data or get objects from S3 and send email via SES. So to do that, we will basically create our custom policy, a customer managed policy. Before we create policy, let's go back to our diagram and update it. So here we can see that we have S3, SES, and Lambda. Now let's try to define connections between them. So we know that our Lambda is reading files, email template.html file and contact.csv file from S3. So it's basically trying to get objects from S3 and then it is sending the email information, like the email data, for example, the source, destination, and the email body to SES, so that SES can generate email. So we need to provide Lambda these permissions so that it can do its job. So let's try to make connections here. So we want Lambda to read or get data from S3. So we can say Lambda, and this should be a connection with S3. Okay, so S3 Lambda can request data from S3, and then S3 can send data back to Lambda. That's why we have this double arrow connection between Lambda and S3. And for Lambda and SES, so Lambda will send just information to SES, but SES will not return back anything to Lambda. So it will be just one connection, one arrow connection between Lambda and SES. So now it is clearly visible to us that Lambda is reading data from S3, getting object from S3, and S3 is sending those objects to Lambda, and then Lambda is preparing everything for SES and sending that data to SES so that SES can generate email. So that's what we need to do. We need to create a policy such that we can allow Lambda to get object access from S3 and send email access from SES. So let's go back and create a policy for our Lambda. So go to policies and click on create policy. And here you can click on this JSON. I mean, if you want, you can always go and like select the service for which you need to create the policy. But I've already created a policy JSON for this particular Lambda. You can go to GitHub again, and here you can see that there's an IAM policy for SES and S3 permission for the Lambda function, and it says that allow GetObject from this resource. And so you need to change this thing, like it's a test email marketing. I just named it anything here. So we need to basically add our S3 bucket name which we have created. So we will replace this, and then we are also allowing our Lambda function to send email API access for the resources, all the resources in SES basically. So just copy this and go back to your create policy JSON policy editor and paste it here. And here we can replace this with CWH email marketing. I think that's the name of the S3 bucket. Just for the safer side, we can copy this name from here and paste it here. Don't replace the slash asterisk because that's basically telling that all the object in the bucket. For that, we are providing GetObject access to our Lambda function. All right, so let's click next here and give a policy name like Lambda S3 SES access, and you can just click on create policy. Right, so our policy is ready. Now let's go back to the role. You can click the function here and then access the role from here, from the Lambda function again. And so this is the role which was added to the Lambda function, and we can add or attach a policy from here. And to see the policy, we can filter it with customer managed policies. And this is the policy which we created, Lambda S3 SES access. Now click that and add permission to our Lambda function. Now you can see that our Lambda function have the access to for S3 and SES. All right, so now our function should be ready. Now let's go and test it again to see what happens. So I'll just close this and click on test. So now you can see its execution is started, and you can see that sending email now, and it has sent email to this subscriber. So let's go and check mailbox for this particular email address, and we should have get that email generated correctly from SES. So I will open up my mailbox and then I'll show you that email generated. So it's right now 6:14 p.m. here, so the email should come to me around that time. Okay, so you can see that I got an email from HP Cloud Labs, your weekly Cloud with Harry newsletter. Let's click that. And yeah, it seems good to me. This same email template that we were using is here, and the email is generating correctly. So the Lambda function that we created is working fine. We can at least generate email manually by running our Lambda, but we don't want to do that, right? We want to basically enable our Lambda function such that it can execute on schedule. That will be our next step. Okay, so now we can click this, a way to merge email template with contact and send them to the email server. This step is done for us. This whole system, like the architecture, is ready for us right now. And the next step is to find a way to trigger the sending of email on schedule. So we need to basically use EventBridge to trigger an event which will execute Lambda function. Like the target will be the Lambda function, and then the Lambda function will execute on schedule and it will then generate the email. Now, before we go to AWS console, let's first update our diagram. So for this particular step, we will need EventBridge. So let's first define EventBridge here, and this will be square bracket AWS dash EventBridge. So we have EventBridge now, and let's try to find a connection between EventBridge and AWS Lambda. So EventBridge will generate an event for AWS Lambda, because AWS Lambda will be the target of EventBridge. So we can say here EventBridge and then single connection to AWS Lambda. So this is how this whole architecture will work now. So in the EventBridge, we will create a schedule that will run on weekly basis or daily basis, whatever you can configure that. And once it will generate an event, that event will go to a target, which will be our AWS Lambda. Then AWS Lambda will read or get the objects from S3. S3 will return those objects back to Lambda, and then Lambda will gather all that information and then send that information to SES, and then SES will generate an email to our subscribers. So that's how this will work. So now we can go to AWS console, and then we can configure and create EventBridge schedule for AWS Lambda. And here in the search bar, I can type event, and here is the Amazon EventBridge. So you can click that to navigate to EventBridge. And here in the EventBridge, you can create EventBridge rule. The one which we are interested in is the EventBridge schedule. It's a schedule which invokes a target one time or at regular interval defined by a cron or rate expression. So what we want is to basically generate our email on weekly basis or monthly basis or daily basis, right? It's something which will run on schedule. So let's click on EventBridge schedule and click on create schedule. Again, you can type a name here. Let's say send weekly email. We can say like that. And description is optional, and keep everything default here. Now in the schedule pattern, we need to decide whether we want to create a one-time schedule or a recurring schedule. Now for the sake of this exercise for the project, because we are not going to run this for long time, like we will clean this up after completion of our project. So we can go with one-time schedule as of now, and then we can choose when we want to generate that email. So here you can select date. So we want to generate this today, and at what time. So currently it's like 5:04 p.m. for me. So I would say like around 5:10 I would like to generate an email. So I can say here like, and it's a 24-hour format, so it will be around 17:10. Flexible time window. So if you choose a flexible time window, scheduler invoke your schedule within the time window. So here we really don't want to have any window. We can just turn it off and click next. So now here we need to select our target. So when the scheduled event will generate, we want that to go to trigger AWS Lambda. So select AWS Lambda here, and then here in the drop down you can select the AWS Lambda which we created, which is CWH send email function. And we don't really have to provide any payload. Here we can just go and click next, and it's asking like enable schedule. You can choose not to enable this schedule now, but we want to enable this because we have already scheduled it to run at around 5:10. So keep it enabled, and any action that you want to take after completion. So we don't really want anything. We can select none, and any retry and dead letter queue, we can just keep it default. We don't want to change anything here. Everything should be default here. And for permission, you can select create new role for this schedule. Default role AWS will create, just keep that and click next. So let's review this. It's a send weekly email. We named it like that, but it's a one time, and target is our AWS Lambda function and whatever default we selected, and click create schedule. So it's creating the schedule. It is on step 1 of 12. It will take few seconds, and then after that our schedule will be ready. All right, so our schedule to send weekly email is ready, and it's currently in enabled status, and we have target selected here as our AWS Lambda function. So let's wait till 5:10 and then I will show you if we get an email to the email addresses that we had verified in SES. So I added one email address which I verified as a to address when we created SES. So let's wait for that, and then we should be able to see that email in that mailbox. Okay, so for some reason I was not able to record at that particular time. So I made a small change and I updated the schedule to run again at 18:43. So the next schedule will run around 18:43 in 1 minute, and then we should get email automatically generated from the AWS Lambda function. So let me wait for 1 minute and I will bring the mailbox and show you that email is generated. Okay, so now you can see that at 18:43, which is 6:43 p.m., I can see that I got an email from HP Cloud Labs, your weekly Cloud with Harry newsletter. So our email generated successfully after integration with EventBridge. So everything is now working fine. We are able to successfully generate email from AWS Lambda function by integrating it with EventBridge. So the event schedule is working fine for us. Now let's go back to our diagram first and then see what's our next steps. So the step to trigger send emails on schedule is done. So we can click that and this is done now. So the next step for us to do the cleanup. So we have created all these resources in AWS and it's basically serverless application. So unless you will not invoke anything, you should not get any charge, because in serverless you only pay for the resources when you use them. If you are not using any resources, then you will not get any bill. But anyway, we will do cleanup for this exercise. So first of all, we will go and delete S3 buckets, and then we will go and delete our Lambda function. Then we can go and delete EventBridge schedule, and then in SES we can go and remove all the identities which we have added. So that way we can clean up everything, and then everything should be back to from where we started. So let's go to AWS management console and start deleting these resources one by one. So go to S3 and you can go to the bucket. Before deleting the bucket, you would need to delete the objects from the bucket. So let's delete all the objects from here. So objects are now deleted. Go to bucket and then click on the bucket and click here on delete. You will need the bucket name. You can copy from here, just paste that name here and click on delete bucket. So the bucket is deleted. Now let's go to AWS Lambda and we can just delete this Lambda function. I mean you can just click this and on in actions and you can just delete from here. I don't want to delete in my AWS account, but for you can just come here and click delete and it will delete your Lambda function. And similarly, EventBridge, you can type EventBridge here and go to Amazon EventBridge and you can click on schedules here and it will show the schedule here which is currently showing enabled. You can just click it here and delete. So your schedule will be deleted from the EventBridge. And then the last thing which we need to delete is to delete the identity from the SES. So go to SES and come to here on identities and you can just delete all the identities from here. So that's it. So we are done with the cleanup. Everything, whatever we created is now removed from the AWS account. Now let's go back to our diagram and here we can click on this cleanup. This is done now. So everything is completed. Now for you, I have a challenge like how will you enhance this project? What are the things which we can do to enhance this project? So here are the things which we can do. We can incorporate DynamoDB to hold names and email addresses instead of a CSV file. Instead of having a CSV where you have all your contact information, you can create a DynamoDB table where you can maintain your contact's first name and email addresses, and then you can integrate AWS Lambda with DynamoDB to get that data instead of using contact.csv file and reading it from S3. And other thing is like we can build a UI that you can use to trigger sending the emails. So right now, like, you are currently just sending email as per the schedule, like it's going weekly or like that. But in case if you want to send regular emails to your subscribers and you want to have capability where you can just click a button to generate an email to your subscribers, so we can do that. We can basically create a UI and then you can integrate it with API gateway. Then API gateway will trigger the AWS Lambda. So all that thing you can do. So Before I complete this video, I just want to tell you that please subscribe to my channel and like this video. I am going to post this enhanced project now after this, where I will use DynamoDB and API gateway to trigger this email on request basis. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in next project. Thank you.